All right. So was there a specific moment in, your career up to that point that made you realize that human trafficking was a bigger issue than you thought, that it's something that interests you? Like, how did you get into what you really focus your life on now?
But when you look at human trafficking issues and you actually understand what they are, if you're traveling overseas, especially throughout the Middle East and Africa, you see it all over the place.
Hmm.
I always just assumed there was a version of me that was doing something about that, right? There's versions of me that were fighting narcotics. There's versions of me that are fighting terrorism. There's got to be a version of me that's dealing with human trafficking and specifically the child trafficking issue. And and so I just kind of assumed somebody was doing something about the problem, and I didn't really, that's not my mission. I'm not going to focus on that. And then I was actually in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, and we came across uh, what I like to call smoking gun intel on a child trafficker who was moving Pakistani children across the AfPak border and selling them to whoever for whatever. We were aware of that in Afghanistan and some of what was going on in I don't remember the Afghan the Pashto word for it anymore, but essentially there's these little T boys who are being used for exactly what you would think, and pretty disgusting stuff. And again, just always assumed that somebody was doing something about that. And when we ended up with this intel, and I was working with a JSOC counterpart, and we wrote it up to try to get it out of station, and we couldn't find anywhere to send it. And the way that Intel works, it's almost like the banking system. Like think about it, right? So if you want to wire money to somebody, there's a routing number, an account number, and that's what makes sure that the money gets to the right place.
Yeah.
Well, Intel is really, I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but it's really no different, right? There's codes that make sure that the right information gets to the right person so that they can then put it into the right reports and get it to the right policymakers. Because at the end of the day, it's the president of the United States and his or her designees are the customers for all of the work that you're doing.
Hmm.
So we write this up and realize there was no intelligence code for human trafficking. It was not a mandatory presidential reporting requirement, which is basically a fancy way of saying the things that we're supposed to be focused on. Uh, it just wasn't. And that made
Hmm.
me really curious. And the cool thing about working at the Central Intelligence Agency as a staff officer is you have the highest security clearance that you can get. Like it does not go any higher. You are read into most of the very large classified programs that are happening. Like you kind of very much understand how the system works, and if you pay attention, you can really start to see how all of the different gears move and work together. And I think if the taxpayers understood that, which is something I have a problem with the CIA being a little too secret in what it is that they do. If the taxpayers understood how well the system worked, I actually think they would be pretty proud of that portion of their government.
Hmm.
So I used that platform essentially that I was sitting in to be able to reach into other places in the government and figure out what's going on. And so the cool thing about the CIA is it's very hard for people under the CIA to reach up into the CIA. It's extremely easy when you're at the CIA to reach down into any other part of the government to get whatever it is that you need or find out whatever you need. And so over a period of weeks and then months, I was trying to figure out like where's the special unit that is dealing with child trafficking issues? Where's again, where are the me's, where are the case officers, where are the analysts who are focused on this issue? And ultimately found that there wasn't any.
Hmm.
And I'm a big nerd at heart, and so I started reading every book I could find. I talked to some professors that I'd had from undergrad. They then put me in touch with other people who were doing research around the human trafficking issue, and then that's when I kind of had this startling discovery that dollar for dollar, the largest human trafficking market in the world is the United States of America.
Right.
And that was kind of my halo moment to go, whoa. So let me get this straight. The most powerful military and intelligence and economic might the world has ever seen that can kill people with flying robots from 6,000 miles away isn't doing anything to protect their own children from being trafficked. And in my mind, trafficking was still an over there issue. So it's
Right.
like, oh, well,
That's what
this
I was
this
going to
must
ask you.
be,
Yeah.
yeah, this is happening over there. There's U.S. children being brought over there. No, when you look at the data, over 86% of the victims of DOJ human trafficking cases are U.S. citizens. Over
So,
80% of the
yeah.
traffickers are U.S. citizens, and 99.5% of the customers are U.S. citizens.
So is this considered like a business? Like, do these people get together and decide how they're going to do this, or is this an
Yep.
individual thing where there's like sickos?
So it's a combination thereof, but
Mhm.
it is very much a business. Traffickers in the United States, and when we say traffickers, um, w- w- the word
Yeah,
that
what does
used
that
to be
mean?
used.
Because I think of like a pimp. I mean, I don't even
Yeah,
know
there
what
you
I would
go.
think.
There's no
Okay,
such thing as a pimp. A pimp is a human trafficker, full stop.
got it.
I have I've had plenty of people try to argue that with me, and anytime I have a man who tries to argue that with me, I know everything I need to know about that man and the kind of stuff that he's into. No, pimps are human traffickers, full stop.
Okay.
And any pimp or anybody who wants to argue that with me, send a time and place, and I'll be happy to debate it with you. Pimps
So,
are human
but
traffickers
does that
because under the
mean?
law, they're
Mhm.
anybody who is controlling another person through force, fraud, or coercion, or a minor, especially for commercial sex, is in violation of U.S. human trafficking law.
Right.
So that's not me saying that. That's what the actual law says.